Welcome to our dinner table, because what you're about to see happens around our dinner table in our home all the time, because we're all about wine and we're all about film. But the movie, Hayley, for me when I was growing up, and of course I'm 10 years old, it's 1962, was Lawrence of Arabia. That was the aha movie for me. And it, it was 4 hours long, they had an intermission with it, made me very, very thirsty. It's a big desert movie. It's Peter O'Toole. It's the same year as To Kill a Mockingbird, but it was transformative for me. And I think what happened when I saw Lawrence of Arabia, which I saw 4 nights in a row by myself, is that I started thinking about movies. And movies became important to me rather than just monster movies and weird movies that were out there just for kids. But when I think of Lawrence of Arabia, I want the challenge for you to be, what wine would you pair with that movie, with Lawrence of Arabia?
With the ambiguous
4-hour Oscar-winning ambiguous desert movie.
So you need something thirst quenching.
Right.
So, one of my favorites. Let's do an Albarino from Rías Baixas, Spain. So this is Galicia. This is far northwest Spain. It's very green. Vineyards are planted in these pergolas, in granite-filled soils. But really the key to what I love about Albarino, and why I think it's such a perfect pairing, is that it's so close to the Atlantic Ocean. So you have these salty, cooling breezes that blow through, creating this maritime climate that is so unlike other parts of Spain.
Yeah.
It creates freshness and vibrancy and great acidity in these wines that basically, it's like sunshine in a glass. Wow. It's citrus and flowers and orchard fruit and this little hint of briny salinity that just makes them unctuous and savory. And I think the perfect pairing.
I think that's a perfect pairing, especially when you say sunshine in a glass.
Sunshine in a glass. Welcome
to our dinner table. A movie I love is The Fabelmans by Steven Spielberg. And the reason I love this movie is because I've had all these conversations with him about growing up and being infatuated with movies.
With Spielberg.
With Spielberg, yeah. And Lawrence of Arabia was one of his favorite movies. But this is about him growing up, and about his love for movies, and how his mother was really protective of him, and his father was kind of aloof about that idea of him becoming a filmmaker. But he became Spielberg. It's this kid who grows up to do Jaws and Close Encounter and all these great films. But Fabelmans to me is this little Valentine to his life and to his mother, and I think it was co-produced by his sisters that are still around. And boy, it's just one of those joyful movies about the joy of making film, even though a lot of his childhood wasn't that joyful.
Right.
He saw through it through a lens that he wanted to make movies about. And even though life got tough a little bit when he was a kid, the joy of just the light bulb of cinema went off in his head. And Fabelmans to me is just the perfect example of that. So I think this is a tough one. What wine would you pair with Spielberg's The Fabelmans?
So we both adored this film,
Yeah.
and in thinking about the perfect pairing, the idea that so many great films that Spielberg made wouldn't have been made, like Jaws and Schindler's List and The Fabelmans, if he had followed his father's advice and not become a filmmaker. And so that brings me to fantastic Robin Lael, a Napa Valley icon. Father was John Daniel Jr., who ran her family's Inglenook estate from the 30s to the 60s, an icon in Napa, produced some of the finest Cabernets ever made in Napa and really kind of propelled it into its future. So early at life, Robin grew up in Napa. Her parents split eventually because her mother never drank wine. And so her father is this iconic winemaker, and her mother wasn't a drinker and never really kind of supported the idea of it, moved her to the Bay Area, and really for most of her life never wanted her to get into the wine business. She was very against Robin going back to Napa and following this kind of passion, but the valley just drew her in. And even after her father passed, she couldn't help but become a part of why Napa is so great today. Yeah. And if she had followed her mother's advice, then we wouldn't have the wines from Dominus that she co-founded, or the wines of Maryvale that she co-founded, or her gorgeous Lale Vineyards wines, including one named after her father, John Daniel, which it's just, I love the connection.
I think that Lale wine and Spielberg's films, they're the best, some of the best absolutely in the world. It's wine and film. It's a perfect pairing. It's welcome to our home.
Cheers.